Now I understand that this is not necessarily the greatest place for a two-way discussion, but we'll do it as well as we can. Rasball, are you telling me you've been here nearly every stream and you don't know where the like button is? Does that mean you've never paid your entry fee? Oh, I'll have to get the bouncers around. All right. We're nearly ready to go, guys. This is going to be fun. Now, oh, Jamie, I agree. Yeah, I think a lot of horses will be more valuable in the future for sure. Sub, D-Gen. Right, back at ya. All right, 60 seconds. I'm like the human countdown clock, aren't I? Good stuff. What I will say is we're just going to keep it as a debate, keep it rational, keep it really considerate and respectful. I'll try and do the same. Yeah, no attacking anyone. Everyone's opinion is absolutely valid and valuable. Regardless if they sit on the opposite side of the fence to me, I'm going to, really try and take that in, take that perspective in. And if I have an answer, I may not have an answer. There'll be questions asked today that I don't have any solutions to, for sure. But I'll try and answer respectfully as I can. All right. Shall we do it? It's all about the odds, guys. It's all about the odds. What I will say, a couple of things. I've got some notes on the left, so if you see me glancing over to the left, it's just to make sure that I cover a couple of points that are really, really important. So I will start off with a little bit of a preface, if that's even a word, pretext. I know that's when you write it down, but I just want to say that I think most of you know that my intent is here for the overall success of the game. It's not to fill my own pockets, and I think you only have to go back and look at the history of my videos and judge me based on that, okay? So judge me based on that. I haven't been doing this big sort of ruse, scam, building up the videos just so at one moment I can flip the switch and potentially modify the game for my own benefit. I do this because I genuinely, I'm holding this odds debate and really sort of pushing this barrow because I genuinely believe it's better for the game. And what I mean by better for the game, it's actually better for the little fish, all right? If any project or any one of these, in fact, any project at all, if they cater to the sharks and the whales at the top of the food chain, that's an instant, path to failure in my opinion, because it's all about ground roots, right? If you keep the ground roots and the little fish happy, then they keep coming in. You've got to keep bringing them in, bring them in, keep them happy so they can grow to be their own sharks and their own whales. Okay, if you just cater to the sharks and the whales, they just dominate all the little fish down the bottom, absolutely dominate, and the game eventually eats itself to death, okay? So this is all about, and where I'm coming from, is not only that I think it's a better gameplay aspect, but I think it's better for the little fish as well. And I'm going to try and talk about that today in a sensible manner as possible. But we're going to have fun at the same time. It's not all serious, guys. Look, if the development team says the odds are great as they are, well, so be it. I'll just keep playing along as it is. It's no big deal. It's not going to ruin the game. I just think it would be better, or could be better. And there's other aspects that could be better too, and we'll touch on those in a few months. We won't go controversy after controversy after controversy. All right. Now it's not. I did mention in my last video that one of the solutions would be to remove the odds altogether. I now think that's a terrible idea, and I think we need an odds, there should be an odds reflected in the racing. There should be odds. There needs to be odds, okay? But I think we could potentially have a slightly better odds system, and that's what I'm going to propose today. Right. Well, yeah, ZED Run Racing to a degree, so they can, I'm not going to answer too many questions, but yeah, the little fish, it's not about feeding the whales or the sharks. It's about a healthy ecosystem, and this is the same in nature. Okay, if you need a balanced ecosystem where you have enough of the little fish and enough of the mid fish and enough of the big fish so that it's all balanced. Okay, if you've got too many big fish or the whales have too much of the advantage, they will devour all the little fish until there's nothing left, and then there's no game, because it just ruins the fun. So it's about having a balanced ecosystem, and I think that's what we can do with this. All right, we're starting to get some people tuning in because we're talking about stuff. All right, so it's not about removing the odds altogether. It's about potentially looking at, is there a better solution for the odds, okay? So that's what we'll be looking at today. Now, one thing that I want to say is the current odds. Let's do a slight background on the current odds. The current odds system, for all the knowledge that I have and what the devs have said in the Discord and whatnot, is based on a 10,000 simulation that are run pre-race. Okay, so they run that same 12 horses 10,000 times, and what you get is the odds of exactly how many times those particular horses won that particular race, and then one of those simulations is apparently chosen to be the actual race. All right, so what we're looking at, or the question I will ask you right at the beginning here, based on that knowledge that the odds are derived from a 10,000 simulation event, is do we want ZED Run racing to be a realistic horse racing game, or do we want it to be a casino type giant chocolate wheel gambling game? Okay, because currently the odds that we're getting are much, much closer to what a giant chocolate wheel. Do you guys know what a giant chocolate wheel is? You know that big wheel you see at the casino, the big Wheel of Fortune type thing? It and spins around, and you've got those different wedges. You know, the 3-to-1 wedge is rather big, and the 500-to-1 wedge is really, really narrow. Okay, essentially the way those games work and the way they are audited to make sure that they are fair is that those odds that you see on the wheel have to come up roughly every 500 to 1 for the 500 to 1 odds. Well, actually, there's a slight edge to the house. So the 500 to 1 might only come up 450 to 1, but they're relatively accurate if you know what I mean. The 3 to 1 will come up roughly 3 to 1 on the odds, okay? So it's relatively accurate. And currently, with the current odds system, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a system where each race is essentially a spin of the giant chocolate wheel, and we know that the odds very accurately represent what the outcome of the race is going to be. Now, that is a good thing. Accuracy is a good thing to a degree, but I want to give you some examples. So initially, do we want a realistic race type game, horse racing game, where the odds are derived from the history of the horse and the breeding of the horse and all those kind of factors, but we don't really know the outcome of the first race? Or do we want a simulation type event where we know exactly in the very first race that this particular horse is likely to win 3 out of 4 races? 3 out of 4 races. All right, but let me give you some examples where I think the gameplay of this is really taken away or affected by the current odds system. And hopefully this will make some sense as to where I'm coming from. Okay, so a couple of examples. First example, let's say I have, or, well, we won't say I have, let's just say there's 2 Z10 Genesis races. For all intensive purposes, they're completely identical before they have their first race. They're both unraced, unbred. They can be the same colour, whatever, it doesn't really matter. So we'll call it horse A and horse B. They're both Z10 Genesis, horse A, horse B. At this point in the example, which one is better? Okay, so that's the first question, which one is better? If you answered that, we don't really know, we can't tell. It's an even bet right now, 50-50 as to which one might be better. Exactly, I would agree. Okay, let's take them through to their first Griffin race. We enter both of those Z10s in the same race. They're exactly the same. Let's say horse B wins the first race. Horse A comes 10th. Okay? Horse B wins the first race. Horse A comes 10th. Now, without any other information, which horse is better. Okay, based on just that first race. Which horse would you now prefer to have without any other information? I think most people would suggest that the winning horse B would be a better bet at this point. After one race, that winning horse would be a better bet. And I think that's, I think that's really, really important. But as it stands now, if you were to look at the odds and see that horse A was 3 to 1, or let's say $4 odds, and horse B, the winning horse, the one that won the race, eventually won the race, was 18 to 1. Within that one race, regardless of result, we know that horse A is significantly stronger than horse B, regardless of the result. The results say the opposite. The results say that horse B won the race, and without being able to see into the future 10,000 races, we think that, based on performance, that horse B, the winning horse, is probably a better bet. But as soon as we add the simulation and allow ourselves to look 10,000 races into the future, it ruins the gameplay experience. It's like game over. It's like, hang on, we didn't even allow to run this horse 5 or 10 times before knowing that horse A was the better horse. We just looked at the odds and we went, well, we know those odds are so accurate that now horse A is more valuable than the horse that's got 1 from 1. And for me, that's not gameplay. That's not how this game would be or should be designed. I think it's really poor design. And look, I'll be honest here, the Zest odds were never supposed to be this, in my opinion, they were never supposed to be part of the Zed gameplay. They're like a fun side project. But because we've discovered how accurate they are, they're now a huge section of the gameplay. And the fact that they can take away the mystery of the game like that, when you have two identical Z10 horses, you race them in one race, the one that wins is now less valuable than the one that comes 8th or 10th or whatever I said, is just broken in my opinion, absolutely broken. Now I'll give you another example, and I will come to your questions, guys. I can see them flashing up, but I want to just talk this out first before I get distracted. Let me give you another example. But if you think that identical Z10 scenario is a bit wonky, yeah, then I would agree that after one race, you shouldn't necessarily be able to completely disregard the result based on the fact that the odds have so much variance. And you could say, oh, look, but the horse that has 18 to 1 odds might be really good at another distance. 100%. I agree, 100%. But the likelihood of that 18 to 1 being significantly better on average across the entire race field is very low, extraordinarily low in that scenario. Okay? And that's through my experience of knowing the odds. And we'll talk about that. I'll show you a little bit at the end of this video how to correctly calculate the odds so that you know what you have as early as possible. Now let me give you another scenario. We've often heard, or I have, if you've been around long enough, you will have often heard, give me a sec. You will have often heard the developers talking about, in the future they want to have groups of mates sort of ring each other on a Saturday, like golf mates, but ZED Run horse mates, ring each other Saturday morning. Guys, let's get down the local pub. We're all going to buy a horse. You know, we'll get 7 horses from the same breed stock or something like that. We'll get a whole bunch of horses. We'll go down the local pub. We'll have some beers and we'll bet $5 in a race, put it in the middle of the table, and the winner takes the money, or we'll bet for beers, or we'll do this or we'll do that. Okay, so 7, 12 mates, maybe you get the whole field, 12 mates, you're all going down the pub. First time ever, heard of this new thing, ZED Run, sounds like fun. Let's buy in the future, I'm absolutely sure you'll be able to buy probably a $20 horse. Go down the pub with your mates and have some races. All right, that sounds like fun. That sounds like the future of Zed, absolutely. Now in that scenario, let's talk that through. In that scenario, let's say Zest odds are still a thing, and the guy that set this up, that got all the rest of the mates in, says, look, the odds are really, really important. You know, have a look at those after each race or before each race, and you'll get a good understanding of what your horse looks like. Okay, so these 12 mates, they all buy a $20 horse to have some fun down the pub for the afternoon, put all their horses in the first race, look at the odds, and then old mate Barry He always gets a bit of a bum steer. He always gets the worst of everything. He's a bit of a whinger. He's like, what's this $40 odds thing? Is that good? Is more money better? More money must be better, right? And old mate goes, no, sorry, Baz, mate, 40 to 1, you've got an absolute donkey. At this distance, look, Barry, on the upside, your horse might be okay at other distances, might be good. Or next week, you know, you can maybe breed it and get some good horses from it. And Barry's like, oh, great, first race, I've got a donkey, all right. Let's have a look what the next race is. So the next race, they throw him in another race at a different distance, and Barry's 45 to 1. And he's like, mate, 45 to 1, 2 races in, this game sucks. I don't want to play this. I'm going to go play the pokies. This game's rubbish. Why would I want to play when I got a horse that's so rubbish? Now, the interesting thing, Barry's horse might have come 4th in the first race. If you completely remove the 1,000 simulation style odds and replace it with a history-based odds, okay, where all of these similar horses might start the first race at 12 to 1. They might all start identically even if they are identical horses, okay? They all might start at 12. So Barry's like, oh, all right, 12s is pretty good. We all look pretty much the same. He comes 4th in the first race, and when he gets to the second race, he's around 4th or 5th favourite, all right? So he doesn't yet know. And I know there's people in the argument that are going to look at this as a detraction, but I'll try and dispel that as well a little bit later. But Barry's like, oh, my horse is in the top half. We're going all right here. And the next race it might finish 6th, so it doesn't affect it much. The next one he might get a lucky 3rd, and then it might deteriorate from there. But in this scenario, with those 12 mates at the pub, you get a great afternoon of mystery of not really knowing how good your horse is and not really... You know, the game is not ruined in the first 1 or 2 races. Okay, so those guys then have a really fun afternoon and they think next Saturday, we'll ring up Barry again. Baz, that was pretty fun last week. You know, you won a couple of bucks or you only lost $5 in the end. It wasn't too bad over the 10 races. How about we buy another 10 new fresh horses and we'll do it again. Let's go do it again. Let's do a ZED Run afternoon again. Okay? But if you have those 1,000 simulations and Barry's got the 40 to 1 horse for that first day, and he's just like, thinks he's given money away. He might only lose $5 or $10, but he's like, well, I was on a hiding to nothing. I was never going to really win, you know, decent money with that horse, was I? And to be honest, he never was. But because the mystery, the rug's been pulled out from under him within 1 or 2 races, it kind of makes the gameplay a little bit sucky in that regard. Okay, now whilst we're on that, I will touch on just briefly for the people that are thinking, well, we don't want newbies to have to run their horse 50 times to figure out that it's rubbish. Okay, and there's a couple of solutions to that. And I would agree, but I will say that with this particular scenario, what I see one of the major benefits of is that, yes, newbies do need to run their horses 10, 20, 30, 50 times to really get a better overall picture of what that horse looks like. But even the extremely experienced runners or trainers like myself and whoever, you know, anyone else, Doofy, anyone else, we still won't know what our horse looks like for the first 20 or 30 or 50. We'll be in a mystery. So it's more about grading the horses based on experience to make sure those newbies do not have to race Zombie Boy or Breathless Edge in their first 50 races. You keep them all, and I will give a bit of an overall vision of how this will look at the end as well, which I think a lot of you will be really excited about how that looks. Okay, a slightly different class system. All right, so the point being that, yes, absolutely, we don't want people wasting money trying to figure out what their horse looks like, but it's in a complete level playing field. No one knows what their horse looks like in the first 20 races, for example, really. No one really knows at all. So it really adds to that mystery and adds to that discovery and adds to the gameplay. Whereas knowing what the odds look like in the first race is, in my opinion, somewhat detrimental, just based on those 2 examples that I've given you in particular. Now the other thing that this will do, it not only levels the playing field for the beginners, but I bet a lot of you are like me and thinking, there really needs to be a way where those with a really good ZED Run intuition can be seen as really, really great horse trainers. Okay? And I think you'll agree with that statement as well. And I think this system really lends itself, because the problem is right now, right, the odds are so accurate that you see Breathless Edge at 3-1 in a Griffin, or whatever it happens to be, $1.80 he might have been, I don't know. But you see these really, really short odds, and Rendezvous and some of these other Y2K2K, another really beautiful horse coming through. And Tyler, it's not about, you know, these discoveries and the fact that you discovered it. That's a great thing. That's a beautiful thing. That will still be around. You did really, really well discovering Y2K2K, and you'll still be able to discover horses early. Maybe not, you know, be as definitive as after 1 or 2 races though. But what I'm suggesting is this new style of system, and we'll have a look at what a new class system might look like in a second, but it will also offer those with a really good Z intuition will be able to make relatively, well, not only will you be able to make good horses look good, but you'll be able to take those borderline ones, and if you stumble across the right combinations early enough, whether through luck or through good management, you'll be able to make them look, you know, slightly better to some degree. Now, I'm not talking about deception, absolutely not. I'm not talking about deception. I'm talking about, forget about free racing, forget about stacking races with donkey bags of, you know, poo horses. Forget about all that. I'm not talking about deceiving the public to get a higher sale price for your horse or for your own benefit. What I'm talking about is, currently, if you have a horse like, I can't think of a name right now, but let's say let's give a scenario where you have a horse that is racing free races against the best horses and winning and making lots of prize money. If you take out the 1,000 simulations from that, you think, wow, this is a really great horse, do you not? You know, that is the criteria. It's racing against the best, it's winning, and it's got a high return on investment. That's the criteria that should matter. Now, if that horse, after 30 races, we look at the odds and see that it's actually in those high-class fields, it's actually 15-1, and it's just getting, essentially it's outperforming its odds and likely getting lucky, all right? Then that horse should be praised for being a great horse over those first 30 races. But at the moment, it's not. It's taken away because we see, well, I'm not going to want to breed with that horse. It's not the elite of the elite. It's just being well managed at the moment or getting lucky. So at the moment, we're saying it's getting lucky and that's going to average out. In the future, if we take away the 10,000 simulations, I think I said 1,000 a couple of times. If we take away the 10,000 simulations, it will be, oh, you're such a great trainer at training that horse, you know, and then if that horse starts losing, then you need to think about, oh, it becomes so much more dynamic. Is this a form slump? Is this a form slump? Is it going to come good? Or was it just a form peak early and it's now reverting to the mean? It just becomes so more dynamic. I mean, the other really cool dynamic feature of this is I had a horse back in the day, right back when I first started playing, called the Dream. Now, I put the Dream into its first couple of races and it was getting phenomenal odds, 5-1s. Okay, so, and at that stage, I was one of the first to discover that odds were really, really important. And in fact, the Dream really highlighted that for me because I kept running the Dream. I ran it 15 times in all paid races because that's all we had back then. Paid. I was probably down a couple of $100. My brother was just like on the phone, stop running this thing. It's a donkey. It's terrible. I'm like, the odds mean something. They've got to mean something. They've got to be there for some reason. And then the Dream came good and won like 50% of its next 15 races to move up to 20%. Now, imagine that if you remove the 1,000 simulations. This is where it gets like phenomenally interesting from a gameplay perspective. If you run that Dream and it loses its first 15 races with a lot of 12ths, there was a lot of 12ths in there, you have to then decide, is this a really bad horse? Or is it a really good horse that is yet to come good? And this is where it just gets so exciting. And this is where it takes away that little element where some of the newbies are having their horses somewhat snipe it away from them. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone's doing this, but there's certainly an opportunity for brand new players to have a horse that runs at $3 or $4 odds, to then have an experienced player like myself or someone else, for example, contact them via message and say, I'll give you 3 ETH for that. Now that horse is probably worth 5 or 6 or 8 ETH, potentially, maybe. So there's a lot of upside for the experienced player to then try and, you know, somewhat take that horse away undervalued or for less money than it's potentially worth. Now, if you don't have those 10,000 simulations to make that valuation on, you need to have a really good eye and a really good, you know, look at the horses to really see where they fit into that ecosystem and how good they are. Now, newbies will also be able to get horses like the Dream for $100, for $10, $20 maybe. And then they suddenly run them and the Dream is ready to start firing, and all of a sudden it wins 50% of its next races, and you get this incredible so-called maybe donkey horse that was considerably underperforming being one of the best horses in the game. That is super exciting from a gameplay perspective, in my opinion. Now, I will get to your questions in a minute, I promise. I can see them flicking up, and I'm trying to ignore them because I don't want to get distracted just yet before I get into that. Now, with all that being said, let's have a look at how a new class system might fit these new odds, because a lot of people will also say, well, hang on a minute, resetting the odds or changing the odds from a 10,000 simulation to a history-based odds system is going to benefit the horses that already have seen the odds. Okay, so what we would need to do is say, right, from a particular date, well, let me run through what the class system will look like, and then I'll run through how you would fit in the horses that have already run. Okay, and in my opinion, I don't think there is a major advantage yet. However, I think if we continue on the path of development and start adding, you know, some other variables like weather, box preference, and whatever else there might be, and those variables are reflected in the odds, then we have an issue that might not be able to be, you know, we might have set sail and we can't turn that boat around, if you know what I mean. Because at the moment, the only preference that's active is distance, and distance is probably the easiest preference to work out without the odds. Okay, so the horses that are there do not have a significant advantage yet, but if we keep heading down this path, they absolutely will. All right, so talking. Hit that like button. Pay the entry fee. We're doing pretty good. 39 likes, 62 viewers. Thanks. I really appreciate you all being here to listen to this conversation. And I know it's a one-way conversation at the moment. Be patient. I'll come back. Might be a long one today. Okay. Now, with the new odds system, we probably need a new class system, which is coming anyway. And this is why the odds is very, very important, because we don't want to necessarily move to the next version of class system, you know, in a rush, and nothing is rushed in ZED Run, and this is new to everyone, this whole odds thing. Credit to Nex for bringing it up, and I wouldn't be so passionate about it if I didn't think it was a significant improvement on the game. So a new class system, tell me guys what you think about this, and don't just drop yes in the comments, because I won't really know what that's towards. If you like this new the idea of this new class system, then put yeah, like the class system, or no, the new class system sucks. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I'll try and paint the picture. Okay, so we've got a new a history-based odds system. What I would suggest is, when you buy your new horse or breed your new horse, so you've got that new horse, unraced, unbred, whatever, unraced is the main one we're worried about. It's never been raced. I would suggest we have a series of barrier trials like we do in real racing, and this is again to try and get as close to real racing as possible and to emulate real racing odds as close as possible. I would have, and I better come back and tell you how I think we might derive those odds too. Maybe we'll do that at the end. It's going to be a long one. So it's 10 barrier, well, I don't know, ever many barrier trials. It might be 5, it might be 10, it might be 20. So you get to try your horse at 1,000, at 1,200, at 16, at whatever distances you decide as a trainer are best to really focus this horse on. Now, if it's a bred horse and it comes from a couple of 2,400 specialists, then you might want to focus most of those races in and around there to see if you can get a few wins going. Now, whether or not the barrier trials add to stats? Maybe not. Maybe they're just sort of a way of training. And I know a lot of people would love to see something like this, a little bit of training involved where you can get a little bit of a feel before you put your horse into its first actual race. Okay, so they're kind of like barrier trials. Now, whether or not times run is an important gaugeable factor, is a metric that we can base this on. You know, if you have a barrier trial and your horse runs a particular time that's in the top 15 of the all-time top runs, is that something that we can gauge off? Look, I would think so, absolutely. If your horse is running the worst times ever, that might be something we can gauge off as well. Those kind of factors, okay? So a series of barrier trials first. Now, what the barrier trials do is they allow trainers to get a little bit of a gauge on your horse before you go into the real racing. And then number two, it gives the odds system a little bit of a history against a couple of hundred other horses to sort of base where they think this particular griffin is going to sit in the first griffin race. Okay, so I love that idea. Okay, we're already starting to build a history, and when we hit the first griffin, your horse has already got X amount of runs against X amount of horses, and we can cross-reference that data to get the odds for the first griffin. Okay, so you run the griffin once, and the griffin is like a maiden. Maybe, yeah, I guess the griffin is like a maiden, and that will be your first actual horse race, okay? And it's against all the other horses in all the other fields. It's not yet divided into the talent, okay? Much like it is now. Then you move out of the griffin and we move into another class, and we can call it a rookie, away from the experienced horses that are very well known, okay? And this is important because you're racing like versus like. So when you come up against myself, a very, very experienced ZED Run racer, in the very first rookie class race, we've all seen our horses run a certain amount of barrier trials. We've all seen our horses run one griffin. We're all somewhat in the dark. So you, as a first-time racer, with your very first horse, are somewhat at the same level as me. Okay, and that's really, really important. Where the current class system lets us down to a degree is when you hit class 5, 4 or 3 now, after your griffin, have a look at the stats of those horses. They're all proven. It's like 100 wins, 80 wins, 70 wins. They're all monsters, okay? And we need to isolate the horses that are somewhat unknown from the horses that are very well known, okay? And that's really, really important. It's really important to have the class system based on horse experience, not horse stats, okay? And this is kind of a tier 2 of the solution, is where we, I guess, modify and make the class system slightly better as well. So a little bonus part, all right? Now, okay, so you've got your 10 barrier trials, your 1 griffin, and then you move into your rookie class where you're only racing against other rookie horses that are somewhat relatively unknown. We don't know how many races are needed to keep that rookie class, but there needs to be a balance between enough to get a good idea of your horse and not too many that the horse that only has 1 race is affected by the horse that has, say, 200. 200 would be too many, because I think you would know your horse pretty well by 200 and you would start getting that, you know, eat the small fish type scenario, which we don't want, okay? Now, where that balance is, it might be 30 or 50 around there, where you just start understanding your horse and you get moved to the next division, all right, which keeps this division very, very competitive, and particularly really competitive for the new 1 race horses. That is important. We then go from there and we would move to a second level, okay? We could call it the pro division, amateur pro, rookie pro, you know, much like that. And I liken this to something like some of those games you play, like Gran Turismo, if you've played that. You know, your very first race against the rest of the races, they don't throw you in against the Formula 1 pro drivers. You know, they throw you in against all the other rookies that really don't know what's going on, okay? In this case, you get matched up against all the other horses that really don't know what's going on. There is a slight, I won't deny it, there would be a slight advantage to having a better knowledge set, of course, but that's the way gameplay goes. But it definitely levels the field in the fact that at race 1, in the rookie system, I know about as much as you do. There is no significant advantage. Whereas in the current system, if I know odds and you don't, You might put a 20 to 1er in a paid race and I'm putting a 5 to 1er in there, and eventually most of your early rookie money is going to end up in the pockets of people that know what's going on. All right, this changes that. Okay, so we go barrier trials, maybe one Griffin, a certain amount of rookie class, and then we move to pro class. Now, pro class wouldn't encompass all the horses. I think we would need a veteran class as well, where you take horses. So pro class might be between, say, we need to discuss this, but say 50 races and 200. You know, that next kind of barrier of experience where you're still learning your horse, but you don't have it 100% dialed in. And the veteran class would be above that, where you're really starting to dial in, say 200 plus. All right? So dividing the class system up into segments based on horse experience really, really helps when you have this new odds system, in my opinion. I think I'm nearly finished, guys, and I know it's been long, so I'll come to some questions. Cock and Bull, great name, mentioned some things in the Discord just before I went to air, and I promised that I would touch on those. One of his first, or his or her, I'm not sure, one of their first concerns was that a history-based odds system would reveal the breeding algo and be very easy to figure out. I don't think so, to be honest, because you're only basing it on very vague stats early on. Okay, you're only basing those early races on the barrier trials, on the first Griffin when you get to race 1. You're only basing it on very vague stats. Now, you might also use some bloodlines a little bit, and you might also, but you're not using the underlying genetic algorithm that's currently being used in the simulation. You're just using these, oh, that bloodline looks good, so maybe this horse is good. Or you could even use data that suggests that, all right, Z1s are on average better than, say, Z50s. So those odds will be a little bit shorter to reflect that in the beginning. Okay, but if that Z50 has had great barrier trials and a great Griffin, maybe won its first Griffin, then it's probably getting close to being the favourite over a couple of Z1s as well. So I don't think it reveals the breeding algo at all. I think we already touched on the next point, which was newbies running donkeys over and over again and wasting money. I myself would have to run the same donkeys over and over and waste the same money. So that section of money will be more spread out rather than the current system that is favouring the very dominant proven horses. Okay, so I take that point, but I think the new system is actually slightly better than the old in that regard. And to be fair to you as well, I've added more information just now, which may also change your stance. I'm going to come to your actual questions there live, guys, in a moment. Just bear with me. And then the last point is a good one. The current system makes it much easier to assess your horse earlier and then making the decision to sell or breed or retire or whatever you want to do. And I would agree with that, but I think the new proposal is actually much more fun from a gameplay perspective. Okay, and it takes away, it improves lots of things. The new odds system that I'm proposing here, and I'm not saying it's my idea because it wasn't my idea. The more I think about it, the more it really improves the gameplay and the game itself. And I'm yet to really find a really fundamental flaw in it. And we're not looking to remove the odds, we're just looking to have a better odds system. The last point that Cock and Bull made was having realistic race times and other ways of telling good horses. I mean, I love this idea as well, making sure that the race times run are somewhat realistic so that you can go, oh, that was a great barrier trial. And look, they might already be. We don't really know that, actually. They might already be. And other race tells, like I heard this morning that someone said the animations for different horses are slightly different. So maybe the way that certain horses walk or are they built slightly different? Are some horses, beefier in the rump? I don't know. That would be cool too if they were. Like if sprinters had a bigger hind quarters, or you were sort of, bigger and stronger and stockier, and the distance runners were a little bit leaner and you know, taller and lankier. That would be really, really cool too. All right, guys, I'm going to switch over here. This will be fun. This will be fun. Let's go over here and see. I hope you enjoyed that. Regardless if you agree with me, I hope you enjoyed, you know, where I'm coming from. It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. What does matter is that it comes from the right place, and I believe 100% that where I'm coming from is not a selfish position. Other than that I think selfishly that it will create a better game, which in the long run is better for all of us newcomer, early adopters here. Let's have a look. Apologies if I accidentally miss one of these, but feed the whale, I already want to buy it. Christopher, want to buy your first horse? I would recommend waiting for the next drop. It shouldn't be too far away. G'day from England, Sir Sling. Connor, I see Bass. Okay, hello mate. Conspiracy, congrats on your first horse. Still finding Nemo, DGen, okay. Crypto Coffee, all right. G'day Tyler, I'm not sure you mean by the head of the snake, but Tyler asked the first question. G'day Tyler, good mate of mine. We've done some breeding together and he has a very good eye for horses. Tyler Chaddick, I'm talking about. And he asks, would you say odds give the little fish a chance to strike gold and no Sosuna? No, well, yes to a degree. Yes to a degree, but I would suggest that is significantly tilted to the likes of yourself and myself that already know about the odds. See, what happens with a lot of the really fresh newbies is they come in, buy a horse, race it in a couple of races. It's getting $4 and $6. They don't even know odds exist. It might lose its first 3 races. I saw an example of this actually happen, where a horse that was getting $4 and $6 odds lost its first 3 races. And one of the existing ZED Run members contacted them and said, oh, your results, three losses. It looks like you got a pretty ordinary horse here. You probably should sell that before the value drops. And they sniffled it. Okay, so I think the current system in knowing how, you know, seeing into the future essentially, is much more detrimental to the newcomer than it is, and in favour of the existing user, than the mystery of trying to figure your horse out with everyone else. Keep in mind that we're not throwing these unknown horses into the mix with your zombie boys and your breathless and all of that. Absolutely, we discussed that. I think that is a much better solution for the little fish. And I hope that I explained that well enough in the last 30 minutes or so, that you kind of see where I'm coming from, even if you don't agree with me. Thanks, DGen, for the like. G'day, Heroin. Good to have you here, mate. ZStats says, I keep talking like the game will always be with only one factor and there won't be any horses introduced to the ecosystem ever again. Do I? Okay. Look, I think I might have explained this throughout the stream, but I realise I think I did, but I understand there's new traits coming. The issue is going to be if they're introduced and reflected in the odds, then that is only going to potentially worsen the issue, in my opinion. Okay, I hope, if you don't agree with me, ZED Run Racing, I hope that maybe if you watched the video, that sort of makes a little bit of sense of where I'm coming from. Yeah, Colin Roberts, this is a good point. This is a good point. A horse that's 20 to 1 that wins the Kentucky Derby doesn't become more valuable than the one that went 4 to 1, 100%. But we're not talking about the Kentucky Derby after the horses have had 20 or 30 runs in the lead up to establish who is the more valuable horse. We're talking about this after one race. After one race. Can you say that the horse at 3 to 1, or sorry, can you say after one race that the horse that won its Griffin versus the horse that came 8th on purely one race only, that the horse that came 8th should be more valuable? Absolutely not, my friend. And look, I don't mean to completely disregard that, but after one race, we're not comparing apples with apples. You know, after one race versus a Kentucky Derby, when these horses more than likely have 10 or more races behind them and a lot of form, okay, it's not the same thing. Also talking about one single distance and one single condition. Yeah, absolutely, but if you know enough about the game, and I assume you're talking about the 18 to 1 to 4 to 1 horse again, or 20 to 1 to 4 to 1. If you know enough about the game, that 20 to 1er is not going to be, it's very, very unlikely to be a better horse than the 3 to 1er or the 4 to 1er, regardless of whether any variables change or whatnot. Now, I don't know how the variables are going to affect this, and to be honest, I don't think adding variables solves the problem that we're talking about. I think adding variables is awesome. Bring it on. But this is a very specific on how the odds are derived and whether or not a history-based odds system is going to be slightly better than 1,000 simulations or 10,000 simulations based odds system. Maybe 10,000 based odds system is better. If someone can give me, a bullet point form on that, message me on Discord and I'll take a look at it. And I'll bring it on live and I'll discuss it. But to be honest, I'm yet to see, a really strong argument about how a 10,000 race simulation is better than a history-based odds form, in my opinion. Yeah, if the variables are reflected in the odds, that's going to be the issue. Human bookmakers, well, maybe. I think there's enough stats people, really great stats gurus, that we can form this history-based odds system really quite easily. Yeah, Kyle, if that was the case, is winning part of the DNA? Could it have really good odds but lack the clutch gene? Look, I haven't seen, it's very infrequent at best that a horse with really short odds in really talented field is just a complete underperformer. It just hasn't been happening. And if it did, then this wouldn't be as much of an issue. If the horses that were 4 to 1, 5 to 1, early days, then amounted to nothing, then this wouldn't be as such an issue. This wouldn't be an issue. But currently that is such a huge tell in the early days that nearly all of those horses go on to be really, really good. Now, don't as a newbie assume that odds are the be-all and end-all, because they absolutely are not, okay? You can have scenarios where horses are, and I've got a couple in my stable now. I've got a Z1 which I'm trying to sell because I'm not sure it fits that I'm looking for. It is called Behind Enemy Lines. It was $3 in its Griffin. It is often $3 in its free races. But in heavy stacked fields, it's not very good. It's 15 or 18. Now, I know that points to a particular style of racehorse, and I'll probably keep it, to be honest, but because I think it's still got tremendous value, but it was on the market, or is on the market currently. But what I'm saying is it's not an elite racer. More variables will improve the situation, they absolutely will, but that is not necessarily what we're discussing here. Is the variables are great, it's just, are the odds as good as they could be as far as benefiting gameplay? Okay. ZED Run racing and end up losing $100 instead of buying 5 more horses. I think you're probably referring to the fact that the mystery around the horses will result in all players, not just the newbies, all players having to discover their horses over a longer period. Now, it's a little bit to suggest that all newbies are going to have bad horses. And that's just not the case. And, you know, some of the established stables will have bad horses and newbies will have bad horses. And there's ways around that. I mean, let's have more free racing in the rookie stage. Let's have more $1 racing in the rookie stage, if that's a problem. That's an easily solvable problem, okay? The wasting money thing is a solvable issue as we move forward, depending on where we think the odds sit. If we like the 10,000 simulations, we go with that. Or if we like the history-based odds, then we go with that. If we think it's better for gameplay, and then we solve the next issue, which is we don't want to waste money at the rookie stage. All right, let's have some more free races. Let's have some more $1 races. That is all very, very solvable. Okay, D-Gen, Colin and ZED Run are all basically, I basically answered all of that. Just then with that, you know, more free races, more cheap races, it solves that problem and it adds to the gameplay in my opinion. RL horses run 5 times in their first year. What's an RL horse, Colin? Real life horses run 5 times in their first year. To be honest, Colin, I think, look, from a newbie's perspective, if you're talking about the rookie stage, yeah, that's absolutely, you know, a floating level. We don't know what would be a good level for that, whether it be 20, 50, 10, 5. But as far as only running 5 times in the first year, you're going to have to buy a lot of horses, and that's going to put a lot of people off. Like, if you can only run once every couple of months, your particular digital horse, that's going to mean you're going to have a, yeah. I might be missing the point there, mate. Only 2/3 of the horses actually even race? Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, after the barrier trial, if you think the horse is bad, you could absolutely sell it, mate. Absolutely. This is what I'm talking about. I would maybe appeal to you because it is so much closer to real life horse racing than what we currently have. The 10,000 simulation and the current class system is not reflective or as reflective as what I just explained, in my opinion. Good point, Colin. You can't have horses you knew the odds of running and horses no one else's people see. My reading is terrible. I'm making a meal of that, Colin. But yeah, I understand this point, and I knew this was going to be coming up, and hence why you don't meet the likes of Breathless Edge until you get to the veteran stage. And currently, Breathless Edge, we only know the odds based on distance preference alone. So by the time any of these new horses that haven't yet run, that go through this new system, get to 500 races, or wherever we decide that happens to be, then after 500 races, you're going to know that horse's different distance preference, and you're on the same level playing field as any other horse. The only slight issue we have is there is going to be a transition period, and how we deal with that is up for debate, absolutely. But what the transition period looks like is you're going to have a horse that might have only run 5 times already now, okay? And that 5-time horse, you know, maybe has to, I don't know. We need to look at how that's, I don't have an answer for that, on how we do the transition. There's many different multiples on how we transition across. You'd also be racing against more donkeys, absolutely, Martin. That initial rookie stage is going to be a mix. There's not going to be any veterans just absolutely dominating. You will have a few horses start to emerge, but you're racing against like for like, and that's why this is really interesting. Yeah, the donkeys will have a better chance. Tyler, good question. Would you need to reset all the horses? I'd be open to it. Absolutely, I'd be open to it. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I think this is such a significant improvement on the game that even myself and the potential disadvantage that would give me for my horses, I would be open to a full reset. I don't want it to happen in a paid race that is, on average, relatively strong. Those horses all eventually tend to come good. Yeah, Kyle, that's a great idea too. Have a division where all the winless horses run. You could have that after the rookie stage or before the rookie stage, you know, in conjunction with the rookie stage. I like it. We could have, what do they call that? They call it a maiden, don't they? A maiden in horse racing is all the horses that have never won a race. I like that idea in conjunction. Yeah, add that too. Colin, this is absolutely not about why are we acting like the favourites always win. It's not even about, it's not about that at all. Yep, we are getting a new class system at some stage. We're hiding the 45 to 1 odds horses so they keep racing to see it. No, it's not about that. It's about simulating real life. Yeah, it's not about hiding anything. It's about a great gaming experience. Not everyone is going to get 45 to 1 horses. I will get 45 to 1 horses and have to figure that out. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just leveling off the playing field. It's not about hiding that. And 45 to 1 horses aren't necessarily as bad as what they make out. A lot of 45 to 1 horses don't win, but you'll see a lot that have no wins, but 10 seconds or 20 seconds and 30 thirds, you know. You know, they still could be borderline profitable. So it's not like 45 to 1 horses are going to lose and not place 100% of the time. They're still going to be there or thereabouts. Colin is fired up. I hope I've managed to somewhat explain it. I doubt that I probably have, to be honest. Very fired up. Yeah, Colin, I think I answered wasting $100 on a 45 to 1. It's a simple solution to add cheaper racing in the rookie stage and more free racing. It solves that issue. Straight up. Hero and still can't find the like button. And Colin found the like button. How many dislikes have we got? Hit the dislike button if you don't like what I'm talking about. It's all good. Scott reckons we need a game reset. We might do. I don't think we do, mate. I don't think we need a full reset based on what I just explained if you've been here the whole time. Billy always buying duds. I know what that feels like. I did it in the beginning too. Sort of scanning now, guys, just to see if there's any really important questions that I haven't touched on. Need trials, I agree. I think trials would be awesome, barrier trials. Jamie, I think you say we need lower classes. I think the class system based on experience really lends itself to helping with that scenario too. Colin, we're not trying to get rid of the odds. We're trying to make them better. Maybe I'm not. You obviously disagree. That's cool. Yep, Colin, we're not trying to get rid of the odds. Yeah, I think there's Matt. Thanks for the idea of the 0 wins, 1 to 4 wins in the class system. I have thought about this myself, and I'm not going to go into it right now. I think it has some validity, but I also think it has some flaws. I think the experience-based class system, or the rookie class, where the horses have only had 50 races, kind of solves a lot of what we're talking about to a degree. But if you want to discuss this with me more, I would happily discuss it because I think it's got some legs, but maybe a combination of both. Okay. Scanning down, guys. There's a lot of stuff here. Tyler, we need a threshold tier for wins placements. Prevent sandbagging. The team's working on sandbagging at the moment, mate, so they know about it. They don't. They're probably trying to fix that up. I don't know what you're talking about there, Razzie Ball. Farley, you win in a division, you don't belong there. No, it's not that simple. He says it's really that simple. No, it's not. You need winners. If you keep removing the winners and moving them up, you should have outstanding horses in each grade on some level. You can't just move them up because they won. John, yeah, you're kind of on the right track. John Krulok, why not list the odds in Griffin races and all future races based on past performance? I'm not sure if you were here for the very beginning, John, but we were talking about having a number of barrier trials, whether that be 5 or 10 or 20 barrier trials to really build up. Those barrier trials would be raced against other horses, which gives you a really good cross-reference to dial in what the odds might look like based on history in that first race. So there's no real need to really reveal the 10,000 simulation, I don't believe. Okay, just thanks for the likes, guys. We're 51 likes, 49 viewers. That is awesome. Okay, seems like it's mostly what we've gone over. If you've got any relevant questions that you want to really touch on right now, then drop them there and we'll do that before we wrap up. But we're getting close to wrapping this up. And look, we'll discuss this again in the coming days. I'm sure the forum's going to fire up and whatnot and keep going with it. But look, hopefully, share this video if there's newcomers not understanding what we're talking about. Share the link to this video and hopefully it gives them a really great background on what we're talking about. I'll chop off the first 10 minutes. Yeah, some option about running against horses that have never run. Absolutely, I like that idea. Farley, are you relatively new, Farley? Because you're talking about gas. We don't have gas in our system, so I assume that means that you're relatively new. So with my system, you've got horse cost, gas cost, and 5 to 10 races to find out you have glue. Basically, yeah. Well, no gas cost. So you've got horse cost, 5 or 10 races. But again, we've solved that problem by saying, let's have more free races and cheap races early on. Let's make it fun. It's all about fun. The main issue with this is the odds suck all the fun out of it. And if you go back to the start of the video and look at those two scenarios, the mates at the pub and the two identical Z10s, you've got a horse that wins, but you got a horse that wins at Griffin, but you're disappointed because it got 18 to 1. That's not fun. I hope I'm making sense. I'm probably not, but. When breeding, should you, that's up for grabs, Jamie. When breeding, should you use a proven winner colt or a well-bred one? It's up, we're not sure. Barrier trial, look, yeah, barrier trial, it doesn't have to be up against others, but it might as well be. It might as well be because it can give you a cross-reference of data as well. It gives you more accurate odds in the first Griffin, which I like. I like the idea of having the barrier trial. Free barrier trials to race your horse 15 times. So again to Farley, like having horse cost and race cost to find out you got glue. You've got 10 or so free races, or 15 or 20, whatever we think barrier trials should be. Maybe they're unlimited. Maybe you have unlimited barrier trials and you just keep racing, but they don't add to your stats, and maybe unlimited is too much. It would give you too much of an advantage moving up to the next level, but maybe a certain amount of those. Figure your horse out to a degree, get it in the Griffin, see how you're going, run 5 more races, see how you're going for placement and money. It's a lot more fun, I think. It definitely adds a different dynamic and whatnot to the secondary market for sure. It will give a lot of doubt. Is this horse just on a bad trot, but it's really, really good? Is it really, really bad, but it's gotten lucky? It adds so many dynamics. Wouldn't the new system make the genetic algorithm kind of useless? No, Jimmy, not at all. No, not at all. I think it becomes more hidden more interesting to a degree. But no. O'Reilly, do I think the current odds convo has bubbled up more right now due to the current state of racing? I don't know. I think the current state of racing highlights to a degree how easy it is. It's the haves and have-nots at the moment. You either have a great racer or you don't. And the only people that are racing not great races are newbies, okay? And they're probably losing their money relatively quickly if they're doing that. If you've got those short odds and you've got your horse in the race, then you're going to make money, okay? And I think that's broken, and it's highlighted with the current state of racing, in my opinion. And I think the new odds system really, really helps, along in conjunction with that vision for class that I outlined as well. Scott is in favour but wants to play the devil's advocate. Of course, mate. The learning curve is already steep. No, I don't think so. Well, to a degree, the odds are like a cheat code. They're like a cheat code, so there's not much gaming involved in it. It's like getting to Mario Kart and getting the cheat codes and going, you know, pressing a combination of buttons and you zip to the last stage and call that finishing it. Look, what I think it does do is it takes the experienced stable owners, and this is really, really important, Scott, and thank you for the question. It takes the experienced stable owners and brings them right back down to the newbie level when they have a new horse. You know, if they get 5 or 10 barrier trials, the one Griffin, and then you're into the racing, I don't know at all if that horse is great or if it's bad or if it's had a couple of wins and getting lucky. I don't know as well as anyone else how good that horse is in the rookie class with a brand new horse. Now, as it stands currently, I just look at the odds. And it's simple as that. I just look at the odds and I go, well, this is a great horse. I'll put it in paid racing. I was going to show you guys how to read the odds. I'll do that tomorrow now. Yeah, Central Coast Stables, a reset wouldn't matter without an algo change because we already know. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you're going to reset, you probably have to change the algos as well. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's necessary. I think at the moment, before we add box preference, weather preference, and all the other preferences, we haven't figured that out. We only know distance, and as long as you're not racing against those veteran horses until you yourself know the distance preference, then we're pretty much on a level playing field, okay? As long as you don't have to race those veterans until you get beyond 300 races, then you will also know your distance preference and we're on a level playing field. If, though, Zed was to decide to add box preference, weather preference and location preference now and leave the odds reflecting that, then we have a much, much different story. All right, we're going to wrap this up. I'm just going to scan these last few. Yeah, I think, Tyler, as far as that, I think you're referring to the moving up when you win type scenario. I think having a maiden type race or some lower class criteria races where, you know, if you had races that were under 2% win rate or under 5% win rate or no wins at all as a maiden type race, I think that would be a cool thing, and I'm sure that's coming, absolutely. %, heroine. Check out class 5 and 4 races. There are so many horses with 50, 60, even 100 wins that newbie horses are just getting monstered, just gobbled up. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Demure. What is your bare minimum run for odds on a horse? For example, would you run a horse with 15 odds or more? No, I tend not to, mate. I tend not to. 15 in a Griffin. I'll run it in 1 or 2 more free races at different distances just to have a look, and then I'll put it on ice probably if it's still 20 to 1, 30 to 1. We'll talk about that tomorrow. This has been a pretty long one already. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah, around 15 is roughly where I start, going, I don't know about this horse. I will check it across multiple distances though, just to make sure it's not 5 to 1 at 1,000 metres when it's 15 to 1 at 2,600 or something like that. Dan Shan. I don't know who you're talking about, Pawn Shop. I didn't see anyone in the live stream that I need to get rid of. All right. Thank you guys. I hope that made some sort of sense. Feel free to share this video with anyone if they're wondering what the conversation is about. And with any luck, it sort of outlines that in a fairly decent manner. Thanks a Wiley, and I really appreciate all of you guys, and I appreciate the opposite side of the story even more so, because it really helps to strengthen the conversation and get us to a point where we can improve the game. Okay, this is not about choosing me or choosing you. This is about discussing and coming to a point where we say, you know what, that is better for the game as a whole. Cheers guys, thanks for watching along, and I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do something again on this. We might talk about odds or something tomorrow as far as reading them, and I'll pull up all the different resources to help you guys read the odds as well as I can. Chat later.